As I held my newborn in my arms, basking in the joy of motherhood, a nurse named Karen suddenly cast doubt on my identity as the real mother and refused to give me my baby cause I'm not the real mom. Here's how it all went down. So, there I was, in the dimly lit maternity ward, exhausted and overwhelmed, having just given birth to my beautiful baby girl. My heart swelled with joy, but little did I know that the ordeal was far from over. As a first-time mother, I had been eagerly awaiting this day for months. My pregnancy had been a roller coaster of emotions, from the initial excitement to the sleepless nights and swollen feet. I had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, buying baby clothes, decorating the nursery, and reading parenting books cover to cover. The nursery, painted in soft pastel colors, was a testament to the love and anticipation I felt. As I lay there, cradling my newborn in my arms, a nurse named Karen entered the room. Her stern expression was completely out of place in the joyful room. With a frown, she glanced at me and then at my baby. Her eyes narrowed as she muttered those words that would send my world into chaos. "This baby is not yours." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart raced and I clutched my baby tighter. "What? You saw me give birth!" I exclaimed, my voice quivering with a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. Karen crossed her arms, her skepticism unwavering. "I've been doing this job for years and I know when something isn't right," she replied, her tone accusatory. "You don't look like the real mother." My mind was spinning. How could she doubt that I was the mother of this beautiful baby I had just brought into the world? The rising tension in the room was noticeable as Karen's refusal to acknowledge my motherhood ignited a fire within me. Karen, her annoyance growing by the second, continued to challenge me. "Are you sure you're the one who delivered this baby?" she asked, her tone incredulous. "I can't seem to remember you being in this room earlier." My frustration deepened. "Of course I delivered this baby! I was right here in this very bed!" I shot back, my voice filled with determination. I demanded, "Get me a supervisor or someone in charge right now!" I was not going to let this nurse take my baby away from me based on some unfounded suspicion. Karen, however, remained stubbornly defiant. She folded her arms across her chest, a scowl etched on her face. "I don't know," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for me to hear. "I still have my doubts." My heart sank. How could she continue to doubt me after everything I had been through? I watched in disbelief as the supervisor arrived, their presence only seeming to fuel Karen's obstinacy. The supervisor tried to mediate. "All right, let's all calm down. I understand there's some confusion here. Karen, please explain your concerns." Karen answered, "I can't be entirely sure if this woman is the real mother. I just don't remember her delivering the baby, and I've seen some strange things in my years as a nurse." My frustration deepened, and I felt my eyes welling up with tears. "You saw me give birth," I protested, my voice quivering with emotion. The supervisor immediately calmed me, saying, "I apologize for the confusion. We'll review the situation further, but for now, your baby is safe with you." Relief washed over me as I clung to my newborn, tears of frustration turning into tears of joy. Although Karen's doubts still lingered like a dark cloud, I had at least won this round. My daughter was safe in my arms, and I was finally acknowledged as the real mother. As the hours passed, I was able to prove that I was indeed the mother of the newborn, thanks to the hospital records. I continued to care for my baby, holding her close and feeling an overwhelming sense of relief. Karen, on the other hand, seemed embarrassed by her earlier mistake and kept her distance. The incident had taught us all a valuable lesson about jumping to conclusions, especially when it involves something as important as a mother's identity. Leaving the hospital with my newborn daughter was a joyous and emotional experience. All the preparations I had made for her, from the nursery decorations to the tiny onesies, felt worthwhile now that we were finally going home together. As I cradled my precious baby girl in my arms, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I was her real mother, and nothing could change that fact. The incident with Karen had a silver lining. She was suspended from her duties due to her unfounded accusations. But most importantly, my heart was now filled with an even greater love and determination to provide the best life possible for my little one. And Karen, well, she would be remembered as the nurse who had once doubted a mother's love, but had ultimately learned a valuable lesson in humility. That incident must have been so emotional for the mom. I'm glad she got to take her baby home and start their new life together. I never expected a casual swim in the pool to turn into a nightmare. Little did I know, my innocent presence and relaxation would lead to false accusations and a confrontation with an entitled dad. Here's how it all went down. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I'm autistic. I just wanted to spend some time relaxing in our local swimming pool. I had my black goggles with me, and I enjoyed the soothing feeling of swimming underwater. Sometimes I'd simply rest against the poolside and bask in the calmness of the moment. I was the only adult male without any children in the pool that day, but I thought nothing of it because the pool was open for everyone, with both shallow and deep ends. While I was peacefully resting by the poolside, a manager, who wasn't even a lifeguard, approached me. He informed me that my presence and behavior were making someone uncomfortable. "Excuse me, sir, I need to talk to you for a moment. We've received a complaint about your behavior," he said. At first, I thought I had upset an overworried parent, and as a parent myself, I felt terrible. I immediately explained to the manager that I was simply relaxing by the poolside. "I'm just here to relax by the pool. I enjoy swimming underwater with my goggles, and sometimes I like to rest here." "I didn't mean to make anyone uncomfortable," I told him. I offered to take off my goggles to reassure them and even expressed my willingness to apologize to the person who had complained. The manager seemed to accept my explanation, and presumably went back to inform the concerned parent that I was sorry for unintentionally causing distress. However, my peaceful moment by the pool didn't last long. After about 10 minutes, the manager returned, and this time, he had a grave expression on his face. "I'm sorry, but the police have arrived, and they want to speak with you," he said. I was shocked, and asked if it was about me. "The police? Is it about me?" I inquired. The manager confirmed that they indeed wanted to talk to me. That's when I encountered the entitled dad for the first time. "You better go quietly, or I'll tell everyone here you're a pedophile," he said with a menacing tone. He was a big guy, maybe in his early to mid-30s, and he looked physically fit. He didn't say much to me, but what he did say was chilling. With those words, he walked away, leaving me bewildered and utterly outraged. The manager escorted me out of the pool area, and although I felt tempted to confront that jerk, I knew it wouldn't end well. I managed to keep my composure and left without further incident, feeling humiliated and unjustly accused. When I reached the locker rooms, I found 2 policewomen waiting for me. Fortunately, they were extremely nice and friendly throughout the entire encounter. After grabbing a towel, they started asking me about the situation and what I had been doing at the pool. I was honest with them and explained that I was simply trying to relax and had no idea that my presence was upsetting someone. I also disclosed that I am autistic, which led one of the officers to share that they had a family member who was also autistic. They then asked for my details to run them through their database. While that was taking place, the entitled dad walked by and one of the officers requested to speak with him. He agreed, and they went elsewhere to have a conversation. I changed back into my clothes, and as I was exiting the changing room, I encountered the entitled dad standing in my way with his back to me. I couldn't hear his exact words over the noise in the room, but I did hear him loudly instruct his kids to stay put while he went to get changed. He walked away without seeing me, and I left the locker room. The police stayed with me in the lobby until their database came back. Of course, it came back that I had no history of crime, and the gym staff had told the officers I had no history of disturbing other people, so I was free to go. However, the entitled dad was hanging around near the back of the lobby, watching me. The police saw this too, and offered to give me a ride home since I'd walked to the gym. I accepted since I was pretty shell-shocked by the whole ordeal, and worried this guy would try something on my way home. In all, this was a really scary experience. I'm just glad the manager and the police were professional enough to let me speak my piece. I should mention there were other parents in the pool who didn't care about my presence. Another dad and his kids were playing right next to me, and he didn't care. I went back to the gym today to see if the same manager was on duty. Thankfully he was, and he took me aside to explain his perspective on things. I'll call him Mike, not his real name. Apparently, this Kevin seemed to be trouble from the start, being very irate with Mike, as well as other staff members. The only reason it wasn't the lifeguards dealing with him was because they were scared of him, being 17 to 18-year-olds, and this guy was an early 30s looking buff man. Even Mike, who was roughly the same age as Kevin, was concerned with his behavior, thinking if he got near me, that we'd end up throwing hands. When Mike first told him that I had offered to leave my goggles off so I wouldn't dive underwater, that apparently wasn't good enough. Then, when the police arrived, Mike had actually just told them he was concerned for my safety. Nothing about the pedophile accusation. No wonder they were so nice. I then asked Mike if at any point he thought I really was a threat to the kids. He laughed and said no, saying that when I had mentioned I had kids of my own, the fact that I had offered to apologize and attempt to de-escalate things, he could tell I wasn't dangerous. He was thinking more about me being safe than whether or not I was a threat. The police seemed to think that way too. At one point after I left, Kevin was getting mouthy again, and a receptionist chewed him out for his actions. Then Mike asked if I made it home okay, and I told him about the police giving me a ride. Their car wasn't in sight of the building. He was relieved and hoped this event hadn't put me off coming back. I do plan to come back to this gym now, since I can count on the staff to have my back now. But yeah, everything is cool now. And everybody knows what a jerk this guy is. So I don't think I'm in any further trouble anymore. Oh, and to answer why I left. I was given the choice whether to go or not. No one told me to leave. I was planning on leaving a few minutes before this encounter anyway, so I didn't mind too much. It was only when the police officer caught Kevin staring at me that they offered to give me a ride. I asked if they had a police log number for what happened. Mike said they weren't given one but offered to chase it up for me. I declined, not really wanting to put myself any further into an issue that seems more or less resolved anyway. It's disheartening to hear about incidents where innocent individuals face false accusations and unjust treatment. We need to promote inclusivity and understanding to create a society where everyone feels comfortable and safe in public spaces. I never thought that a few forgotten chores could push me to the edge of sanity, but as I stood on the brink of a messy divorce, I couldn't help but question my own judgment. The constant struggle to balance my responsibilities, my business, and my own well-being against a husband who seemed oblivious to it all had brought me to a breaking point. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. Here's how it all went down. My husband, who is 40 years old, and I, who am 39 years old, have been married for 12 years and together for 13. Overall, we have a wonderful marriage. However, I often find myself responsible for the majority of the housework, cooking, errands, laundry, and waking up early with our youngest son, who is 6 years old, and our other son, who is 13 years old, even on weekends. I also spend a significant amount of time cleaning up after my husband because he forgets to do things. As a result, I rarely have any free time and I never get the opportunity to sleep in. Many of the things he forgets are minor, such as leaving shoes in the walkway, leaving lint from the lint trap on top of the dryer instead of disposing of it, putting trash in an already full trash can, leaving used glasses out instead of bringing them to the sink, and leaving used wash rags on the shower floor, among others. It may seem trivial, but over time, these small things take up a significant amount of my time cleaning up after a grown-up, especially when I'm already cleaning up after two non-grown-ups. I own a business and am working on my degree, so I have very little free time to spare. On the other hand, he works from home and has the luxury of sleeping in, taking nap breaks, playing video games during lunch breaks, and spending an hour or two every evening playing video games to decompress while I study. He does allow me some time to go to the gym or go for a run, but I find myself skipping these activities more and more just to keep up with the mess and chores at home. When I bring this up, he claims it's unfair because I only focus on the few times he forgets to clean up after himself, without acknowledging all the other things he does. I'm not trying to be unfair, I tell him. It's just that it gets really overwhelming when I have to clean up after you, especially when it happens frequently. He does clean up after himself about 50% of the time, depending on what it is. But some things he legitimately never does, like leaving lint on the dryer or throwing away used toilet paper rolls. He also suffers from a sleep disorder, which can make a person feel foggy sometimes. I get that you have a sleep disorder, I say, trying to be understanding. But it's not just about that. It's about us sharing responsibilities and maintaining our living space together. He says I should be more compassionate with him and accept this as a part of loving someone with a chronic illness. The truth is, I do understand what chronic illness is like, and I do have compassion. I myself have been living with chronic pain and fatigue for years, and am finally undergoing the diagnostic and treatment process for lupus and RA. I do have compassion, I assure him. I know what it's like to deal with chronic illness, but we also need to find a balance that works for both of us in this relationship. I constantly experience pain and exhaustion. Despite this, I push through and make sure to maintain a reasonable level of order and cleanliness in my home, because that's what responsible adults do for their children. I don't have the luxury of forgetting to do important tasks like laundry, dishes, or cleaning because no one else will do them. My partner also claims that my standards of cleanliness are unreasonably high. However, I believe that not wanting to leave urine stains around the base of the toilet or leaving used dishes and food on counters in an area known for roaches is simply having a basic standard of cleanliness. In comparison, I feel like his standards are lower than those of the average adult, as most people would find those habits quite unhygienic. One of the lessons I've learned through my journey with Aid is the importance of saying no. Although I deeply love my husband and best friend, I don't see this situation changing unless he is compelled to make an effort. I'm beginning to realize that removing myself from the equation may be the best option for preserving my own sanity. This way, I will have one less person to clean up after and can find some much-needed downtime through shared custody. Even if he only had the kids on 1 day a week, I feel like custody sharing might force him to hold himself to a reasonable standard of hygiene and cleanliness too. I definitely enable his laziness out of necessity to meet basic safe levels of cleanliness. Without me there, he'd have to learn to be consistent or risk losing visitation. This is my only complaint within the marriage. We really do love and care for each other, and he's emotionally very kind and supportive. I love him very much. Am I a jerk divorcing over this? We fought about it, and I ended up ugly crying, partially out of frustration and partially because I'd been up since 4:45 a.m. with the youngest. I told him that it was about lint on the washer and used toilet rolls on the sink, but not really. I said that I felt like he didn't listen nor care to try. Through my tears, I poured out my feelings, saying, "It's not just about the lint and the toilet paper rolls, it's about feeling like my needs and concerns aren't heard or understood." We apologized to each other, and he wrapped me up in our duvet, reassuring me with his actions. He took over the housework and tended to the kids. He's genuinely sweet and does try when he realizes how much it means to me. It's been nice to have a day off, but I can't help but be skeptical because this isn't the first time I've reached a breaking point or felt deeply upset, only for him to be extra nice for a while, only to revert to his old habits in a few days. I guess we'll see how things unfold from here. After the meltdown on the day, he did as promised and took over the housework and kids for the day. However, as I had feared, by the next day, he had reverted back to his old, dismissive, chauvinistic self. He didn't contribute to any housework for the rest of the week, leaving me in a position of unpreparedness for a very important test due tomorrow. This is his usual pattern. He puts in effort just long enough to make me think he has changed, and then he reverts back. Starting on Sunday, I reminded him multiple times that I needed time to study. The test is on math, and it's difficult. My plan was to study for 2 hours per day and be prepared by Friday. This meant he would need to help out with tasks like giving baths and reading bedtime stories so I could focus. But it didn't happen. As a result, I ended up using the time I needed to study to cook, clean, and do laundry. Now, it's late on the eve of the test, and I have only had 1 hour of study time. I'm exhausted and unable to even imagine practicing proportions or quadratic equations right now. Out of frustration, I broke down and told him that I couldn't handle it anymore. I run my own business, work hard in school, and keep everything running smoothly. It's an incredibly unfair burden, and I'm tired of trying to make him care. I asked him how he could treat his female coworkers as equals, but not extend that same respect to me. He admitted to being a hypocrite and stormed off to play video games. At this moment, I'm considering taking incompletes for the semester so I can focus on my business and navigate a messy divorce from someone who acts like a big man baby. Before marrying, discussing living arrangements and division of household chores should definitely be a part of the conversation. It's important for both parties to be clear about their expectations and responsibilities to avoid potential conflicts down the line. Communication and understanding are key in maintaining a healthy and balanced relationship. I never expected that a simple offer to pay for a gender reveal scan would spiral into a chaotic battle for control and inclusion. As tensions rise and boundaries are tested, the true colors of my family begin to surface. Secrets, manipulation, and conflicting loyalties threaten to tear us apart. Here's how it all went down. So my girlfriend and I found out in August that we were going to be parents to our first child. Overall, everyone was very happy about the news. However, I was initially shocked because it wasn't planned. In that moment, I called my mother for reassurance, and it helped. I understand that she wasn't happy that I told her over a phone call, and I apologize for that. We have since resolved the issue and moved on. My sister has been supportive. She helped us move to a new house and wants to take my partner out for baby shopping in a few weeks. However, my mother has been less helpful. During a FaceTime conversation in mid-August about housing options, my mother randomly asked me if my partner was on the pill. I recalled the awkward moment vividly. "So, Mom, we've been looking at houses in the neighborhood." Before I could finish, my mother interrupted. "Wait, dear, I have a question. Is your partner on birth control?" I blinked in surprise, not expecting this question at all. Yeah, Mom," I replied, slightly taken aback. "She's been on the pill for a while now. I've even seen her take it." My mother's inquiry felt like she was insinuating that I had intentionally trapped my partner into having a baby. It was an uncomfortable and unnecessary question that left me feeling defensive and hurt. I've had some concerns about my sister. While I appreciate her excitement, I sometimes feel that she is overly involved. I shared my feelings with my sister during one of our conversations. "Sis, I really appreciate all the support you've been giving us, but I have some concerns." She looked at me attentively, waiting for me to continue. "I love that you want to be so involved, but sometimes it feels like you're making decisions for us," I explained. "You mentioned having the baby with us every weekend so we could have some couple time, but we need to consider both our families' needs." My sister nodded. understanding my point. You're right, I might have gotten carried away with my excitement. She also expressed concern about us moving closer to my girlfriend's family than mine. She questioned the support we would receive from her family, as her mother lives 2 hours away. I reassured my sister, "You know, my partner's mother is incredibly supportive. She visits every weekend to care for her own mother, who has dementia. We'll be just fine, and we'll make sure to balance time between both sides of the family." My sister kindly offered to pay for our gender reveal scan, which we both appreciated. Understandably, she wanted to attend the appointment, since she was covering the expenses. "Hey," my sister said with a warm smile, "I'd love to cover the cost of the gender reveal scan for you guys. It's a special moment, and I want to be a part of it." We exchanged grateful glances and thanked her for her generosity. However, things took a bit of a turn when she suggested that we invite our mom as well, as the facility allowed up to 5 people. "Actually," I hesitated, "we were thinking about inviting my girlfriend's mom too." My sister raised an eyebrow, looking a bit surprised. "Why her mom? This is our family's involvement in the pregnancy, and your girlfriend's family will be present at other events." We explained that it wasn't about excluding anyone, but rather having support during this personal appointment. My girlfriend didn't want it to be just my family present, and she had her own reasons for wanting her mom there. Previously, my mom had insisted that it should either be just my family or no scan at all. In response, I agreed to pay for the scan ourselves. "I'm sorry, Mom," I told her during a phone call, "but we feel that it's important to have both our families there. We don't want to exclude anyone." My sister then messaged my girlfriend, explaining her reasoning, which left her in tears. My girlfriend, still emotional from the message, told me what my sister had said. "She mentioned that your family prefers to keep things separate and can be a bit antisocial," she sniffled. "They believe that meeting my mom at the scan would be awkward." We both felt frustrated and hurt by my family's stance. It seemed like they were prioritizing their own comfort over our wishes and the desire for both of our families to be involved in this special moment. Both my mom and sister are trying to make me understand their point of view. While I do understand their perspective, I simply do not agree with it. My girlfriend's mom is not upset about not being included. She is more concerned about how this situation has affected us. She reassured me not to worry about my family and offered to pay for the scan herself, allowing me to invite whomever I want. Despite reaching agreements on our side, I still have doubts due to my sister's initial offer to pay. Additionally, I was contemplating inviting my dad, but my girlfriend's mom believes that it would upset my family. Am I the jerk here? To provide further clarification, the phone call with my mom was not initially met with a negative reaction. She was happy and congratulated me based on the assumption that we were deciding to keep the baby at that time. It was only later revealed that she wasn't too thrilled when we recorded my sister's reaction. At an event, I informed my mother that I would be driving to my dad's place to see him the next day. My mom doesn't think my dad does enough for me. Although we rarely see each other in person, maybe once or twice a year, our relationship is fine. This was his first time becoming a grandfather, while it was my mother's 4th time. My sister already has 3 children of her own. She is eager to have a 4th child, but her husband keeps refusing. When I mentioned this to my mom, she suggested FaceTiming him, but I declined. She then said, "So he gets a live surprise and I get a phone call?" I explained that I needed initial support and apologized that she found out this way. Some people have asked about the situation with my dad. He and my mom have been divorced for 24 years. He wasn't the kindest to my mother at the time, and I had a stepmother who constantly drove a wedge between my dad and me. However, she has been out of the picture for a few years now. I have informed my dad about the current situation, and he believes that my mom and sister are being ridiculous. People have told me that I need to have a backbone, and I have been working hard in therapy to overcome this. To provide some background, I was a vulnerable child who was suspected of having autism at a young age. However, my mom refused to have me assessed because she believed I should learn alongside neurotypical children. This approach didn't work, as I constantly doubted myself. With the help of people like my sister, who would point out my mistakes, my confidence continued to suffer. It wasn't until I went through a breakup at the age of 23 and experienced a downward spiral of depression that I sought more help. Doctors determined that I didn't have autism, but rather anxiety. However, my mom and sister insist that I do have autism because they believe I would receive more support. But when I connect it with my problem now, it feels like manipulation. I've pushed back on several occasions and asked to be left alone. I would receive comments about how something I did was due to autism, which I asked them to stop. My sister has 2 children diagnosed with autism. autism and one with ADHD, and she works for an autism charity. After being diagnosed with anxiety and depression, I started taking Prozac. I had also been in a relationship with an ex at a different time, and I noticed subtle controlling behaviors. We didn't work out, and my family supported me through that. I am realizing that narcissistic individuals often clash with each other because they try to expose the other person in order to make themselves look better. So my upbringing was conflicting, as there was both nitpicking and seemingly genuine care. My mother has also experienced abusive relationships and the loss of a partner, so I attributed her strange behavior to that. The same goes for my sister, who went through a stillbirth. Now, I'm with a wonderful person, ready to start a family. And while it is unfortunate that my family couldn't be cooperative and understanding, my partner and our baby come first. We need each other above all else, and no one should dictate who takes care of them or anything else. I confronted my mother about her comment regarding the baby trap, and she apologized to me, but not to my partner, who overheard the conversation. Since then, she has been distant. Now, I'm questioning why I am even allowing her to come to the scan if my partner's mother will be coming after her behavior. My mother has a tendency to backtrack, often saying something that could annoy or upset someone and then claiming it was a joke. I have since called her out on her backpedaling, but she denies it. My mother's strange views on separating from my partner's family stem from her own anxiety, I believe. We suspect she may be on the autism spectrum, but she is in denial about it. We have witnessed moments where she experiences sensory overload, becomes obsessed with specific topics, mostly conspiracy theories, lacks a filter at times, and struggles to see things from others' perspectives. I believe my sister wants to be seen as the best guardian, possibly even a parent, and views her family as a threat. Some people questioned the need for a reveal scan, but we thought it would be a nice experience for our first child. I understand that it may not be everyone's preference, but it is what we want to do. Anyway, my sister called me on Sunday, and I explained that my girlfriend should be able to have whoever she wants at the scan. She expressed concerns about the awkwardness of the situation at the scan, so I suggested a coffee meetup instead. She said she would discuss it with my mother. However, my mother declined the idea, claiming it was too formal. In her words, she said, "I'm sure I'll meet them someday." She then suggested having 2 separate scans for each side of the family, but I turned down this suggestion as I found it inappropriate. My girlfriend should not be treated as a test subject for other people's enjoyment. Instead, I propose that we book our own scan and decide who to invite, whether it's just the 2 of us or others. However, this suggestion made my mother respond passive-aggressively, saying, "Fine, do what you want. I've been nothing but supportive, and your girlfriend is going to want her family there for everything." I reassured her that this was not the case and that my girlfriend wants both families involved. Knowing that they would continue to make offers regarding the scan, I sent them a long message in a group chat. My sister attempted to gaslight me into feeling guilty. After she said we should part ways, I blocked her on all platforms. I refuse to allow that kind of influence in my life, and I especially won't subject my girlfriend to it if they are not going to respect our boundaries. Shortly after, my mother called me and told me that my message was condescending, cold, and formal. She didn't understand why I was overreacting about the scan and told me not to interrupt her. I explained to her that it's not just about the scan, but about her excessive involvement in general. It is clear that my sister left out certain details because she was unaware of my sister's desire to look after the baby every weekend and her insecurity about the support from my girlfriend's family. My mother suggested that we all meet up to talk, but I refuse to be bullied. If I am to attend a meeting, I want someone in my corner. My mother is attempting to play the role of peacemaker and has sided with my sister's erratic behavior, so I don't fully trust either of them. As for the scan, my girlfriend and I have booked our own appointment, and we plan to have a reveal party next weekend where everyone is welcome. However, for now, I will not be inviting my mother and sister. I've explained the situation to my dad, and he is disgusted by their behavior. It's worth noting that my sister and I have different fathers. After a few days, we've already made our booking for the scan. The decision on who attends the scan depends on individual preferences. It's important to clarify that this decision is not something anyone has dictated. Instead, it's something we've discussed because she's the one carrying the baby and desires support from both families. Unfortunately, disagreements about what should be our decision have made things challenging. We're embarking on the journey of starting our own family, so we believe it's our prerogative to make these choices. I felt uncomfortable with the attempt to change our minds after we declined the additional conditions without a willingness to compromise on meeting beforehand. To be candid, It seemed like an intrusion. While we haven't communicated much, Mom, I assume that you both share similar sentiments. Going forward, events like the baby shower will be separate for each family, allowing close friends and family to participate. We extend an open invitation to both families, including the upcoming reveal after the scan next weekend. Hosting separate events for each family would not only be more costly, but also demand more time and effort in organization and attendance. There's no reason why either family should be excluded from events that involve the family we are creating. If you choose not to spend time with her family, it's a matter of personal preference, not a rigid rule. Both my mom and sister have reached out to me via text. I had borrowed £50 from my sister to help with my car repair. Given that my girlfriend and I have been occupied with moving, one of my tires blew out at a rather inconvenient time. I promised to repay her on payday, which was last Thursday. Her text demanded the money back and implied that I was withholding it unjustly, even going so far as to suggest that her kids needed it. While I suspected this was an attempt to provoke a reaction, I chose to silently return the money, maintaining my integrity. She then proceeded to text my girlfriend, despite my explicit request in my previous message not to involve her in this matter. Her message expressed concern about the scan even though it was scheduled for the 15th, originally her intended date, though she seemed confused, and urged my girlfriend not to be upset. It seems she is fishing for information and is more focused on the baby than our relationship. My girlfriend has chosen not to respond. Earlier this week, my nan also texted me saying, "I rarely intervene, but I care for all of you and wish to mend this rift." Before your sister got to know all the people at school, I attended every meeting with her. She's socially shy when it comes to meeting new people, so, like Mom, I was her comfort. However, I've stepped back now. Please reconcile. I believe she understands that you need space. She's heartbroken. Extend your hand. Her intentions were well-meaning. You've made your point, but she adores you and holds your girlfriend in high regard. My love to you both, always. Please mend this rift for me. After a day of contemplation, I responded that it wasn't my responsibility to repair the rift. While I don't wish for family relationships to deteriorate, I need my space. They've exerted control over me and caused me pain too many times, and I won't tolerate it any longer. My nan replied, expressing her understanding and stating that she won't take sides. Yesterday morning, my mom reached out, expressing her concern for my well-being and assuming that the scan was this weekend, even though she originally wanted to attend but is now away. She mentioned a desire to catch up during the week. However, it doesn't appear that either of them has expressed remorse for their behavior. It is important to establish boundaries with your family and ensure they respect your wishes and treat you with the respect you deserve. You have the right to make decisions for yourself, your partner, and your growing family. Remember that you do not have to negotiate with manipulative or controlling individuals. Be firm and direct in asserting your boundaries. If they try to undermine your decisions, take charge and handle things on your own. Surround yourself with supportive and respectful people. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk.